of, why we're here and who's in the room, we really would love to hear from you. So we have set up a poll and a word cloud activity for us. And we'd love to hear from you. What is a phrase that describes what you hope to gain from this presentation? So we're going to be dropping a link into the chat so that you can contribute to our word cloud. If you are on a computer, please click onto the chat link and get started here. If you are on a phone and you'd like to contribute this way, it's a bit of a two-step process. We'll ask you to send the word Veronica Mont 586 to the text 37607. You're going to get a confirmation that you've joined our cloud and you can begin submitting, but we recommend you use the chat link if that's something you can do. It's a bit easier. So we'd love to hear it from you today. What is one phrase that describes what you hope to gain from this presentation? So we'll give everybody just a moment here. And as I enlarge my screen to hear, we learn, inspired, borrow, practices. Perfect. And the link is still in the chat. Feel free to drop some words in. We're seeing inclusivity. Yes, expertise. Learn, ultimately, yeah. Beautiful. We'll give it one more moment here to see what other reasons folks are here for today. Institution Latinx. See some keywords here: serving, transfer, community, needs. Look at that cloud growing. Encourage, positive, pathway. Love it. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. All right, so there it is. Transfer, students, learn, inclusivity, needs. There you are. That's ultimately why we're here today. So thanks for participating in our word cloud. To get started, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to my colleague, Vero, who's going to get us going with the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Tommee, and thank you all so much for sharing your phrase with us today. We certainly will be taking this into consideration as we review today's presentation. But before I go any further, I would like to bring the amazing voices of my co-presenters into the room with me. So we'll start, Monica.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Monica Rivas, and I am the Associate Director of Academic Advising at CSU Channel Islands.
And I'm Tommee McMakin, and I am the Asset Scholars and Student Research Coordinator. I work on a day-to-day basis with our peer mentor team with the Student Academic Success and Equity Initiatives Department.
And my name is Veronica Montoya. I am the Transfer Student Success Activity Director, also with the SASE department at CSUCI. So before diving in, we wanted to be sure to provide you with an overview of today's presentation. So as you can see here on the PowerPoint, there are 5 sections for today, and we're actually in the midst of one now. So we'll start with some brief context and demographics. Then we'll cover what Project ALICE is, and that's our overall project for today's presentation, with sections in the Regional Transfer Success Fellows and Peer Education and Equity Initiatives, or PEEPs, which is our peer mentors. And then finally, we'll have a breakout session at the end of our presentation today as part of the Q&A. So again, in this first section, we would like to give you a sense of our regional and school demographics for CSU Channel Islands. So where exactly is CSU Channel Islands? Well, we're actually not on an island. We are located in Camarillo, California, approximately 40 miles north of the city of Los Angeles in the neighboring county of Ventura. We're a beach city, mostly mixed with agricultural fields where we grow strawberries, there's lemons. We're the only 4-year public university in the county, and we're the youngest, the baby CSU, having opened in 2002. The California State University system is one of 2 public university systems in California, and we are one of 23 campuses across the state. Uniquely, when CI first opened, its inaugural class was composed only of transfer students, and since then we continue to be a transfer majority institution, which is exactly what you see here. For our most recent semester, fall 2020, 53% of students were transfer students. Like many institutions, like probably yours, we were worried about declining enrollment rates and had projected a 12% enrollment decline for this past fall. Thankfully, we exceeded fall 2020 projections and enrolled 6,194 full-time students, so we're a little over 6,000. And as you can see, the majority of CI students are first-generation students at 61%. 57.5% of our students are Pell eligible, 55.7% are Latino or Latinx, and nearly 58% are HUGs, or students from historically underrepresented groups. Now that you have a sense of who we are, we would like to begin with section 2, which gives an overview of Project ALAS and its work in the 2 directions that it has, which is the Regional Transfer Success Fellows, or the faculty cohort of the program, and the Peer Education and Equity Program, or PEEPS, which is really the student-facing part of the program. So Project ALAS stands for Aligning Learning and Academic Success. I should mention, however, that ALAS in Spanish refers to wings, as in wings to fly. So we call it alas, which, as you can see by the title of our presentation today, Alas en tu Camino, represents giving our students the wings they need to fly on their transfer pathway. Like much of our work, our intention is to give culturally relevant messaging that matches our student population. So Project ALAS itself is a $3.24 million federal grant with the U.S. Department of Education's Developing HSIs, or Hispanic Serving Institutions program. We worked with all the community colleges in Ventura County, including Moorpark, Oxnard, and Ventura colleges. The design of the project was to build an intentional transfer pathway across our institutions. So at CSUCI, we recognize that the success of a transfer student couldn't begin at the start of their time at CSUCI. It had to begin at the point that they entered into our regional educational pipeline. So along with our partners, we took a really hard look at administrative barriers, incongruencies in articulations across specific majors, with a particular focus on those top majors for entering transfer students, which included sociology, psychology, and communication. And this work that we did over the last nearly 7 years went major by major, or area of discipline. And faculty and staff from all institutions really came together to address issues from really a regional perspective. A primary element for us working to serve what we call post-traditional students and to make our institution student ready and meeting students where they were at. We knew our post-traditional students often meant that they were juggling jobs, often more than one, that they might be older, and some might come in as parents or the primary caretakers of their family. Regardless, we knew that students did not necessarily fit the traditional freshman entry student model. So throughout this process, we realized that we needed to be proactive in serving our students. When we began, CSUCI had just become a designated HSI in 2010, or a Hispanic Serving Institution. Remarkably, throughout the entire project, all of our partner institutions, Moorpark, Oxnard, and Ventura, also became HSIs. This meant we had a unifying goal, which was to move from being a Hispanic enrolling institution to becoming a Hispanic serving institution. For Project ALAS, this work was done in 2 directions. First, with our faculty and staff through the Regional Transfer Success Faculty Initiative and the RTS Fellows. In this arm of the program, we convened over 100 faculty and staff across all 4 schools in year-long fellowships or cohorts that really explored transfer readiness, and it explored them in specific areas. And in just a moment, you'll hear more from Veronica, who's going to share concerning her experience as a fellow. Then in the second arm of the program, which was our student-facing element, this is where peer mentors help students throughout the entire transfer pipeline. We had outreach peer mentors that contacted community college students and peer mentors that supported transfer students once they transferred to CSUCI. All of our peer mentors are PEEPs, which Tommee will cover in just a moment. In total, we serve more than 10,000 students in the region. and a little more than 8,000 out of the 10,000 were not on our campus, but were in fact on our partner campuses. Tommee and I would joke actually that we worked more at our partner colleges than we actually did at CSUCI, but I'll let you hear more about that from her. So with that, I will turn it over to Monica. Monica?
Thank you, Vero, for introducing the LS program. In this next part, I will specifically talk about the alignment of academic advising and counseling services across institutions. As Vero noted, these institutions were selected in alliance as we found that 44% of our total transfer population came from Ventura and Santa Barbara counties. Our learning outcomes were to share information and access a state of advising and counseling across these institutions so that we could identify the barriers to transfer success. And we also wanted to study the best practices in order to develop and implement programming and practices to enhance student success. The reason why we selected this partnership is because prior, the communication between counselors and universities tended to incur between the counselors and admissions, but academic advising was left out of that process. So we had about 10 counselors and advisors who met back during the 2017-18 academic year, and we started a conversation about the barriers students reported back after transferring. So some students were complaining to their community college counselors that they were not advised about additional graduation requirements that they would be able to take, that they would have to take in addition to just the major classes that they would assume that they needed to take. So we identified a couple areas of disconnect, some of those of which are the differences between the expectations between community colleges and universities, the differences in some of the functions between counselors and advisors. So for example, at the community college, the counselors were able to evaluate transcripts, and if there was a prerequisite issue, they were able to immediately fix that. But at a university, these functions are done by the registrar's office. Other areas of disconnect that we found were the silos of accessing resources. So at the community college, counselor was like the point person that can talk to them about financial aid and talk to them about other things, whereas at university, there is a specific office that handles each of those areas. Other things that we identified were policies and regulations. So for the academic renewal, so students, if they failed classes, thought that they could also do academic renewal at university, and that's not possible. Withdrawal policies were also very different compared to the community college. And so what we ended up doing was we created a one-day regional counseling advising collaborative, and we invited counselors from participating institutions in addition to some of our other local four-year universities within a 50-mile radius. And we had roundtable discussions where we talked about, you know, what the expectations were at the community college for students and what they were at four-year universities. We talked about additional graduation requirements that students would need to complete in addition to major requirements. We talked about some of the differences in rules, the regulations, and the policies. And then we talked about recommendations for doing pre and post transfer handoff strategies. And so what resulted is some changes in our advising practice and also additional programming, such as a transfer boot camp. So the transfer boot camp, we held in partnership with the SASE program, which Vero and Tommee are a part of. We held the transfer boot camp the Saturday before the semester started. And so at the boot camp, what we did was we had a peer panel, which gave recommendations on what to do to be successful in the first semester. We pointed out some of those policies and regulations that were different from community college, important deadlines for them to be aware of. And then they were also provided with tips for success in navigating campus resources. Then the following year, we did an Admitted Now What event, which was held in late April, early May, which is before orientation. And so we did this at two community colleges. One was at Moorpark College and the other one was at Oxnard College. And there were various four-year universities that we invited to attend as well. And so there were representatives that came from various universities. And so we included student testimonials. So we had transfer students from these schools who came back and talked about their experience and made recommendations about what students should be doing, who they should be connecting with. We had an admission panel of representatives that told them next steps, what to do as they prepared for orientation. And then finally, we had a transfer social celebration to just celebrate, their achievement of transferring to schools and making a poster of all the different schools that they got admitted to. So through this partnership, we identified areas for improvement in communication, the topics and resources transfers most needed to be successful. And this also resulted in improved advising for us at orientation. We created an online new transfer advising course. So it includes the things you would expect from orientation, degree requirements, catalog major requirements, but we also created modules which added information on how to navigate the various campus resources and tips for success. So now I'm going to turn it over to Tommee, who's going to talk to you about the PEAK program.
Awesome. Thank you, Monica. 45 minutes is a short amount of time. We're giving you a lot of information. So you'll notice I've dropped into the chat a link to a Google Doc. Feel free to drop any questions in there as we're going along. We're talking policy, we're talking partnerships, it's a lot. So please use the doc. We'll come back to it at the end for part of our discussion. So thank you, Vero and Monica. I'm going to sort of begin talking a little bit here about our PEAK program. So as my colleagues mentioned earlier, the student-facing piece is one part of our Project ALAS, which is our peer education and equity program. We often refer to our peer mentors as peeps, so you may hear me talking about peeps along the way. And in the spring of 2020, our PEAK program employed 75 students across both institutionalized programming and multiple HSI grants. Monica, if I could have you go back to one slide there before, that would be awesome. Thanks. Perfect. So as my colleagues mentioned earlier, the demographics, both of that make up our region, our student body, and our regional transfer demographics, you can see that they're directly reflected in our PEAK program. And with 25% of our peer mentors being transfer students themselves, we also see this continuity of the transfer pipeline as they continue on from community college to CSU CI, and then even reflected in some department staff. I also attended 2 local community colleges. I am a CSU CI alum, and now I continue to work with the SASE department as well. So our peer mentors are hired as student employees, and they average 15 to 20 hours per week. And over the last 11 years, over 350 peer mentors have served transfer students in the county, including me, who's now gone on to work with the PEAK program to reflect a true pipeline. So so our peeps are truly representative of who they serve in the community colleges. And one of the most important pieces of mentorship is knowing that you're seen and you're heard. And this is directly seen in our PEAP program because our peer mentors are who they serve. And the peeps are able to authentically and strategically serve students because of intentional training that we've come to develop for our PEAP program, which is not only a high impact practice, but supports students with intentional professional development as well. So upon hiring, our peeps are offered 50+ core hours of training, both as a larger group and within their individual program teams. Full core training is offered both in the fall and in the spring. And this year, we fully transitioned our week-long in-person training to a virtual training with a blend of both synchronous and asynchronous modules, which in turn modeled the use of virtual high-impact engagement practices for our peeps. There are weekly team meetings and trainings that occur throughout the semester which offer professional and career development training, knowledge about campus resources, and opportunities for students to strengthen their facilitation and professional skills. So this semester, peeps were also given the reins to lead some of the team trainings, and topics included virtual student engagement platforms, Zoom training, and creating, developing, and utilizing social media as an effective outreach tool. They're also encouraged to take initiative to develop mini training snapshots as they master new virtual engagement strategies to do what we call jigsaws, where they then pass knowledge on to their teammates in a train the trainer model. So structured training is offered as well as consistent messaging about equity-based practices and the PEEP's role in this equity revolution. Where the peer mentors really harness their skills, though, is through applied use. And through Project ALAS, PEEPS has represented CSUCI and communicated and collaborated with multiple campus and regional partners and the community. As Vero mentioned, we've spent a lot of time within the community at local community colleges, in EOPS offices, in transfer centers, and in classrooms. So the PEEP outreach that they have been doing through Project ALAS has included both CSUCI students, community college students, faculty and staff, and parents. And these collaborations have included direct one-on-one mentorship opportunities, developing and facilitating academic workshops, supporting university application and financial aid labs in partnerships, like I said, with community college EOPS offices and transfer centers, and all the way up to hosting campus events at CSUCI for students in all phases of their transfer educational journey. And these opportunities have increased the peer mentors' experiential knowledge and has fostered the development of their leadership skills. And while these opportunities for professional and leadership growth are abundant, I want to pause here for a moment and focus on one of our leadership competencies, sharing. So we all have an educational story and we all have a why. As transfer students, we probably think our stories are unique, but if we share our transfer journeys, we're going to see some opportunities for connection. So how many folks here have attended more than one community college? How many folks have attended more than one university? How many of us worked multiple jobs while going to school? How many of us had children or family to care for while going to school? And how many of us crossed that stage for other people who believed in us? So all three of us here, Monica, Vero, and myself, have shared our stories with our students and in turn, we encourage them to courageously embrace their vulnerability and share their stories as a way to connect to students they serve. Our peeps have incredible stories of folks who believed in them and supported them to get them where they are, stories about their struggles to adapt and when they knew that they belonged on campus at CSUCI, and stories about the aspirations of who they will continue to become. And that right there is the power behind peer mentorship. It's that magic sauce in that quote that we noticed a little bit earlier here. It's the gaining the trust, connecting with students, and building authentic relationships combined with effective training and leadership skill building that really make our peeps the heart and soul of our programming. So over the last 7 years, Project ALAS funding and through all of the work we've done in recognizing the needs of our students, we've developed multiple events to continue to support students in all phases of the transfer pipeline. Our ALAS events have also intentionally included faculty and staff with their own transfer experiences to reflect true representation. We are who we serve. So the Transfer Success Student Academy, TSSA, is an event geared towards regional transfer preparedness. It includes in-class outreach, fully incorporates the holistic notions of increasing transfer preparedness and providing professional development for our peeps, and also providing those resources for the community college and the community students to get prepared to get ready for transferring. Our peeps can contribute to the marketing, planning, coordinating, designing, and implementing transfer-focused curriculum to support this event. And over the last 4 years, we've served over 550 students at these events. As Monica mentioned earlier, Transfer Bootcamp is also an event that we host. And for this year, for the first time, we hosted a spring Transfer Bootcamp to support those mid-year spring transfers. Last year, we participated in our National Transfer Student Week, which Monica had a direct hand in developing for this. It was the first week-long event held in the fall of 2020, born out of the momentum created from Project ALAS. And just yesterday, we've launched our very first ever 5-day Transfer Summit event. We are in the midst of it right now. Vero and Monica will be hosting a student, parents, and caregivers event this afternoon. Tomorrow, I'm going to be inviting LGBTQ+ transfer students to gather and to build community. So all of this, as a result of the momentum of Project ALICE, has helped us to continue creating support resources for students on campus. So ultimately, through being part of the PEEP program, our goal for our peer mentors is to support them to gain a clear vision about their post-PEEP life and continue to put into practice the knowledge and professional skills gained in order to realize leadership potential and to facilitate change in their communities, both at CSU, CI, and beyond. So with that, we'd like to turn it over to you for here. As I mentioned a little bit ago, we've had a document going where you're able to drop questions, and I see a few folks are already beginning to drop some in. So what we'd like to do is to place you into breakout rooms, about 3 folks in a room. We'd love you to please introduce yourself, your name, and your institution. But the main goal—
Welcome back, everyone. We hope you had a chance to hear one another's voice, get a chance to meet other folks from other institutions. One of the bonuses from being virtual is that you can talk to folks from all over the country and they're actually in that place and time, which is amazing. So we hope you had a chance to meet some folks that are in the room with you and get your voice in the room. We want to be sure to honor your questions. So we're going to take the next few minutes to begin answering the questions you may have. And so before I jump onto the Google Doc with your questions, and we're going to drop the chat into the chat just one last time in case you didn't get it already. But one commitment we want to make to all of you is if we don't actually get to answering all of your questions, we commit to coming back to this Google Doc and filling out and answering all the questions. So we hope to keep this document live. I will say take the link with you. We hope to continue a dialogue over Google Doc. That's why we intentionally built it out that way so that we can still continue dialogue if you have any questions for us. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over with that. I'm going to go ahead and jump over to the Google Doc, and I'm going to just, as Tommee said, we do like to get everyone's voice in the room. It is definitely something we appreciate and value. So I'm going to invite you to unmute yourself, and I won't call out the person that actually put the question down. That sometimes seems really high stakes. So I'm just going to invite someone, anyone, to read question number 1 for us.
I wrote question 1, so I'll be happy to read it. So, by the way, my name is Ernesto. I'm with UCLA Transfer Recruitment. So we do work with the transfer centers. I'm glad that you brought up EOPS because that could be another space that we can kind of contribute. But you also mentioned classes, and I'm just wondering what classes specifically do you go to recruit?
So I appreciate your question, Ernesto. I know Monica has some additional information for us also. We actually didn't set out an intention for any specific class, and what we found was leaders within surprising areas. So for example, there was one faculty member at Moorpark College out of the chemistry department who became our cheerleader. And anytime we were doing kind of any event, he would give extra credit in all of his courses. We didn't ask him to. He would pass out our flyers. He would send students. There was one instance where he had class going and couldn't come ask himself. He asked one of his students to walk out of class, go pick up some flyers for our event that was still going on all day, and passed them out to his whole class. And so what we found was there was just pockets of faculty members that wanted to do anything in their power to connect transfer students up. And so they were all over. In every kind of campus that we were on, there was that faculty member at Moorpark. The entire math department at Oxnard College was our hub. In fact, that was actually kind of one of our offices on campus. They wanted to do anything to help their transfer students succeed once they hit CI in the mathematics department. And so a really strong pipeline. And all we did was really if there was a cheerleader, we supported that. And we really worked on those connections. Ultimately, I think our work is really person to person, and really connecting the dots across our campuses. I know this person, let me connect you up. And so at the end of the day, it really became that, in addition to the formal infrastructure that Monica described.
And so the other thing I'll add, as some of you are probably very aware, the community college counselors often teach the transfer courses or like study skills classes, variations of the course. And so I connected with a few counselors and went and guest lectured and talked about like successful tips for transferring and like expectations and just getting them used to thinking about going on to university and things to expect, who they should be contacting, doing research, and just all the things that they could take advantage of. Another thing that I did was through the regional fellows program, I worked with the sociology program at CI and at one of the community colleges, inviting me to their meeting to talk about what some of the issues that students most said they had difficulty as they transitioned to upper division classes. So they really wanted to listen, like, okay, what are students telling you? So they're having issues, it was for sociology, so they're having issues with writing, they're having issues with learning how to read journals. And so the community colleges actually redesigned the learning outcomes of their curriculum to make sure that students were prepared once they went to university.
I think one surprising thing as well was tapping our peer mentors. Our peer mentors are local transfer students. So when we were organizing, going into classrooms and doing outreach, they would come in and say, this professor was down. I love this professor. I really want to connect with them. Great. Email them, contact them, giving them the opportunity to build those relationships and create the collaborations across the institutions. We connected with a lot of professors who work directly with our students as well.
Yeah, actually it was often the graduates from the community colleges themselves that would establish our link into those classrooms, even to begin with, because they had been in their courses just a semester before. And so this wasn't something that was for, history to them. This was last month. I was in this professor's class. Now that I'm at CI, I'm his success story. Let's make this connection. Let's bring others with us. So I'm actually going to jump us over because this is actually kind of uniquely tied to another question that's on here, and that's question number 3. So would somebody be willing to read question number 3 for us?
I can read it. It was my question as well. So hello, everyone. Let me jump on over there. So have you built relationships with academic departments, and what does that partnership look like?
Yeah, I can kind of start that answer. Our department is a unique department where we have 5 HSI grants. So we have 5 different HSI grants in SASE, the Student Academic Success and Equity Initiatives Department. We are housed under academic affairs. So we have already created that collaboration directly with academic affairs. And in turn, we have created partnerships interdepartmentally on our campus, social, student services, academic advising. Monica herself is in advising. And then also interdepartmentally across institutions in the region, like we've mentioned, EOPS, advising, transfer centers, and all that as well. So yeah, I feel like career services, the counseling and psychological services, our multicultural dream center. I think we are a small institution and we are a small community. I think when we're doing the HSI grant work, it turns out we're actually 3 degrees separated from everybody to some degree. So we have created a lot of strong partnerships on campus across the departments. Monica, is there anything you want to add that?
Oh, sorry, I was just looking at the time. So I think like we have time for one more question, right?
Can I answer one question here? I really want to hit upon something that I think we missed, combining question 5 and 7. One key part of our programming is culturally relevant programming. You can see the title of our workshop itself. All of our acronyms and grants are in Spanish. We do host very specific events. One of our partnerships on campus is with Chilpasa, the Chicano Latino Faculty and Staff Association. We have a campus-wide Raza Bienvenida event where everybody comes to join and we welcome everyone to campus. We host our Dia de Familia, which goes out and invites community, middle school, high school, community college, family, brings them onto campus to create this university going culture. Noche de Familia is actually coming up in a couple weeks. That's our event where we invite CSUCI students and their families. So we do very intentionally build in culturally relevant programming because our families get us here. They are part of our entire journey here. So our Si Se Pudo event is a pre-graduation event put on by Chilpasa, which brings our families onto campus to have a pre-graduation Chicano Latino, event before graduation happens. So we do very intentionally build in Spanish, English. Noche is a completely Spanish event. We do have translation, invite everybody, but we do build that into our programming very intentionally.
And on that, actually, we love it when our parents come in and we're like, do you need translation? And they say yes. And we're like, no, the event's entirely in Spanish. This is for English speakers. And they love it. They get this look on their face like, what? And all of our faculty, all of our professors, everyone the language is Spanish for that entire event. And so everyone else that needs an English translation are the ones wearing the headsets. And I think they love that reversal. They absolutely love it. So I want to honor our time, and I want to just let you all know we are going to ask if you could please complete an evaluation concerning our session. If you do have any questions for us, again, we commit to answering all the questions that you've given us on the document. You can also feel free to email us here. I'm going to drop this into the chat. It is our email address, which is peep@csuci.edu. And you can always feel free to reach out to us. We would love to hear more from all of you. And please check the document. We'll come back to that. And then again, if you can complete the evaluation for NIST, I know they're doing some great important work for our transfer students, and we'd love to hear more about what the direction should be. So gracias a todos. Muchísimas gracias that you all could be here with us today. We appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing some of you in some other sessions.